Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Don Lee, and I'm here with Mark from Enchantment of Eternity. And today is going to be our part two discussion of how Game of Thrones will end. And I'm trying to remember if this is supposed to be just a TV show, or if it's also going to be the book as well. Because we kind of had a lengthy talk last week, and kind of trying to remember all of the details can be just a little shaky here and there. But Mark, why don't you introduce yourself for people out there?
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Mark from Enchantment of Eternity. And I think what we could do with the discussion is it could be about the show or the books, either or. Like, if there's going to be a difference in our theories, we could specify this for just the book or this for just the show. But if there's not going to be, if we don't think there's going to be a difference, then we can just say in general, like either book or show. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, cool. And for those of you who may not know, every time me and Mark do one of these, there's actually a little bit of time travel involved. Mark is actually coming to us from the future, and I'm not hyperbole. He is actually coming to us like here in the U.S. It is currently 8:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday. And for Mark, he is currently Tuesday, 12 p.m.
Yep, over here in New Zealand. Yep.
Yeah, it is actually tomorrow for him. So he's broadcasting from the future. So time travel is fun, everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is you were telling me how hot you were because, you're just ending summer here, but we're actually still in winter here, so I'm just quite cold today. Got my jersey on and stuff.
Winter is already where he's at. So, wow, that's kind of cool. But anyway, so we wanted to discuss, a few topics. First off, who will sit the Iron Throne? Now, this is one big point of contention for everybody. You know what? Someone asked, why is it stuck on a race? You know what? I'm not exactly sure why it does that, but hold on. Let me see if anyone can see me now. But,
Hey,
oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually going to restart I'm just going to jump out of the chat room for a while and restart my browser because everything's frozen for me. So I'll just be back in a couple of minutes.
Problems with time travel. Listen, I wanted to give everybody in the chat room a shout out. Of course, we have Hype's Watch in the building. We got Don the Kraken Wit, JD the Dragon, Jerry the Targaryen Steamboat, T Baby, Jeff Jamal, and someone new here that I don't think I've seen before. Niall Darlston. I'm sorry. I hope I haven't screwed your name too badly. And no, T Baby, I do not want to be Batman. That might be a little bit too much of a task for me right now. But while we're waiting for Mark to come back, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. I know today is a big holiday out here in the States, and not everybody always gets to hang out and just do this kind of stuff on a holiday. If you happen to be like me and a couple other people I know, then you were working today. So while I didn't get to enjoy the whole day, it wasn't a total loss. But I'm glad that that you guys are all here with me. Um, so yeah, while I'm waiting for Mark to get back, I am going to talk about who I think is going to sit the Iron Throne, or whether or not uh, I'm whether or not there's even going to be an Iron Throne. Oh, and Mark is back. Cool.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh, you know what? And I got my man James Michelle here. You know what's going on? Live from Kentucky. See, I remember. I think it was Kentucky. I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest. And no, I'm not doing the Bane voice. Somebody asked me if I was doing the Bane voice. I, I I don't think I'd be really good at that one. But yeah. So I was just about to talk about who I think is going to sit the Iron Throne
Okay. Yeah.
end of this series, or whether or not I even think there's going to be an Iron Throne. And
Right.
yeah, 1 second here, because I'm not sure why this is not switching to like the different views that it should be, but maybe that might do something there. All right, let's see. Let's see how this goes. All right, so in fact, you know what? Since you are the guest, I'm going to try to be a good host. I will let you start this off. Who do you think will sit the Iron Throne at the end of this story?
Okay, so my stance has always been, I said this in my video that I did like last year, that it's going to be Sansa.
Okay.
Hold on. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, so my stance is that it's going to be Sansa who sits on the Iron Throne. And even if I might agree with you in part that there might not be an Iron Throne in particular. It might be like a different kind of throne. It could be in the capital, might not even be King's Landing. It could be somewhere else. Because I think that a lot of forces, and these forces will be different from book to show, but basically a lot of forces are going to converge on King's Landing at once. And it'll be this huge battle, and King's Landing is pretty much going to be obliterated. The Iron Throne is going to be obliterated. Like, with the Lannisters and Tyrells fighting each other, and the Faith Militant, and then I think like Dorne, Veiled, Iron Men, all this stuff, the Ironborn, will all converge on the throne. And in the books, Aegon, and in the show, Daenerys, it's just going to be a mess. And I think like Westeros is pretty much going to be decimated after this, so they're going to have to like rebuild like a new throne, a new thing. And I believe like that the Targaryens will regain power after this decimation. By Targaryens, I mean Daenerys Targaryen, Jon Targaryen, Tyrion Targaryen. Sorry, putting that out there. And but all three of them will go off and fight the White Walkers and defeat the White Walkers, but they won't return. And Sansa will sort of be elected to be the queen. And and by elected, I mean, well, not elected, but declared. And I'm sort of basing this off of history, because the whole reason why I think it's going to be Sansa is because I know George R.R. Martin likes to base things off of history. And I think they're going to base her off of Queen Elizabeth. And she didn't ascend the throne necessarily through like the line of succession. She was sort of, even though she was sort of related and in line to be queen, she was sort of declared queen by Parliament. So I think something similar here will happen to Sansa at the very end, and she will be queen of Westeros. And that's sort of my theory on it.
Okay, that is very, very interesting. Yeah, especially with relation to history and how things have played out in history. Truthfully speaking, I mean, as much as I would like to think that George is going to follow his trend as far as English history goes, George is an American, and I think just to kind of shake things up, there isn't going to be an Iron Throne. I think we're going to have some sort of democratic republic at the end of it. And, you know, man, like how they would wind up doing elections or whatever. Listen, I'm not exactly sure about that, but I do think the whole, um, I guess the basis or just the whole theme of aristocracy is going to be toppled. You know, and I think it was kind of foreshadowed even in the show to a certain extent with Daenerys saying that she is going to break the wheel because you have these powerful families who've been on top in preceding successions for hundreds and in some cases thousands of years in Westeros, and in order to just kind of bring balance to the realm, I think that you're going to have something that not necessarily resembles like the United States government per se, but something just a little bit more democratically um, based across the board, where it's more that everyone gets a say, and it's not just whoever has the most money or the right family name will actually get to participate in this particular new world that will be created once this is all once the war for the dawn has settled. I mean, I could be totally wrong about this, but I think that based off of uh, a George being an American and that kind of being the system of governing that he would be more used to, and B, just to kind of shake things up because you know what? Yeah, even though this is a fantasy epic, the one thing about it is that it's been way different in the fact that it's more based in kind of realism than a lot of things. Yeah, obviously it has the fantasy elements to it, but just the whole political backdrop behind it has been a lot more based in reality. And I think that's part of the reason why so many people have gravitated towards it, is because it actually does kind of remind us of our own world, as opposed to something more like Lord of the Rings, where that doesn't remind you of anything that you've actually been through.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a very good point. In fact, that's another sort of theory I was kind of happy about as well. Although I do think that this Game of Thrones is more about sort of medieval times, medieval England. So I think maybe a democracy is sort of the long-term pitch that Westeros will one day be a democracy, and maybe the end of the series will set it up like that. I don't know. Another theory I had was that, like you said, there wouldn't be an Iron Throne, but each kingdom would have its own ruler, and they would form like an alliance. So there wouldn't be the Seven Kingdoms anymore. There would be the Seven Kingdoms again, separate, but they would all sort of form an alliance together, but no one would rule over all seven of them, sort of, which is kind of similar to what you're saying.
So, I mean, I guess kind of more, that almost kind of sounds like the five mafia families that got New York for a little while, to a certain extent. I mean, it could be true because you know what, like, and when I say the end of the series, I don't mean like immediately, as soon as the war is over, it's like, hey, you know what, let's have elections now.
Yeah.
Maybe a generation or two, but I think that it'll be set up in a way that your average person isn't going to look to overlords to keep them safe anymore, because I think just with the whole White Walker threat, people are going to realize that all right, it's not a banner that's going to keep me safe, or some guy or some woman named, whatever that comes from this particular family. I think it's going to be a thing where, in order for them to sustain their society going forward, they're going to have to be a little bit more inclusive with the people who are at the bottom, because I think the people at the bottom are going to play a much larger role than most people have actually expected.
Well, yeah, I definitely agree with that part. I think that even fitting that into my Sansa theory, I think Sansa would be sort of a populist queen if that was going to be the case. But even if it's not, it's something more like what you're saying. I do think that's definitely, I agree that that's what they're building towards, something that's that considers like the little people more. But in the immediate like time within like the next season or the next book or whatever, I think they are going to just sort of, the sparrows, like the faith militant, are using that like the common person in order for their own personal gain. And actually the faith militant are ultimately no good though. But I think by the end of it, you'll have someone in power who actually is good for the little people.
Okay. Yeah, man, faith innocent. Don't even get me started.
Yeah.
That is just absolutely what those guys are doing. It's I guess it's almost akin to the Spanish Inquisition and maybe the Catholic Reformation to a certain extent. And we see that that didn't necessarily fare too well for a lot of the people, because like what the High Sparrow was doing is basically kind of like what the Spanish Inquisition was doing, where if you get accused of something and they want to believe that you did it, you can be beaten in the streets or shamed, or even executed. So yeah, that's man, that's yeah. I want to see what part they're going to play, because that is going to be very interesting, just to see. Like even after things are settled, will there be even a faith of the seven, or will people kind of turn away from that particular religious system? Because as we know, George R. Martin is not a religious man himself, and in fact, I think he might actually even be an atheist. I'm not 100% sure on that. So it's yeah, it could be a thing where he's setting up the faith militant specifically so that they can be torn down, as a religious order.
Oh, I definitely think that's the case. Like, in keeping with my theory, I think they're going to play a large part in destroying King's Landing, and they'll pretty much decimate. It will be like an irony, because their whole purpose is supposed to be to stick up for the little guy, but they'll actually end up doing the opposite, because they're too power hungry and too set in their ways about trying to the whole making Cersei do the walk of shame. It's like they're just too power hungry, so really they're not really up for the little guy, so they will self implode or explode, and by doing so they'll cause damage to the realm.
So before we switch gears, just to reiterate here, Mark, you think that Sansa is going to be kind of elected as the queen of the Seven Kingdoms, but
I think declared is a better word than elected.
Okay, well, declared
Yeah.
the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, but instead of it being kind of a monarchy, it's going to be her as not necessarily a figurehead, but sort of a figurehead with kind of a loose confederation of Seven Kingdoms all backing her at the same time.
Well, no, that's actually two different theories I had.
Okay.
Like, they're two separate theories. Yeah, one theory is that the Seven Kingdoms split up separately and the other one is Sansa becomes queen of the Seven Kingdoms. And in that case, she'd still be a monarch, but a benevolent one, like a good one.
Okay.
So something similar to Queen Elizabeth is known to history.
All right. And listen, my general theory is that there isn't going to be a singular ruler. It is either going to be, as Mark said, where it will be split into regions where everyone has their own ruler, but it will be kind of a confederation that bands together, and maybe there is a council of lords or something like that. Or the other possibility is that they will transition at some point into some sort of republic, democratic republic state. So, and so that's where we'll leave that particular topic right now. Now, kind of piggybacking off of this is the person who is pretty much the catalyst for most of the events that have happened in Westeros so far, and that is Lord Peter Baelish. People call him Littlefinger. I don't like to call him Littlefinger because I think that just the way that he's kind of screwed over people has become one of the mantras, and the reason why I think that you gotta give that man his due and not belittle him in such a fashion. He is, pretty much, at least for the story in Westeros, south of the Wall, he is the catalyst for many of the events that have happened to him, happened in the story. The death of Jon Arryn, the death of Ned Stark. He might have actually been one of the people who helped Jon Arryn and Stannis Baratheon to discover that that Cersei's kids were not Robert's. And, so far we have seen him gain a massive amount of power without having to use any military strength of his own because he has none. And the fact that he's been able to do this is probably the most astonishing. But I think the fact that he has risen so covertly and cunningly is all the more reason why he will take a great tumble, and I think that tumble will be out of the moon door in the Eyrie. But I'd like to hear your thoughts as to what you think is going to happen to Littlefinger at the end of the story.
Well, yeah, I kind of agree with you that it has to end in his downfall. And getting back to my theories of what I said earlier about there being a huge clash where King's Landing is destroyed, I think Littlefinger is going to play a big part in setting that up because he's all about like chaos and just fucking shit up and having everything go to hell. However, I think his ultimate plan will be to be somehow rise out of the ashes as the king or the ruler. And I don't think it's going to work. I think ultimately, getting back to the whole Sansa thing, I think ultimately the show and the books are sort of setting it up. So she's ultimately going to be who defeats him, who ruins his plans. And I think not necessarily outright kills him directly, but she'll put events into motion that cause him to be killed. And in the show, we're already in a place where Sansa has reasons to not like Littlefinger or not like Peter Baelish. And I think in the books, something different might happen that would also sort of sour her to him, and she'll end up overcoming him. And that's sort of what I think will happen with him.
That is a very good analysis. And, I think that in the same way that she was abused by Ramsay, I think that with Sansa being in the Eyrie and, not just the Eyrie, but in the Vale, and people not knowing exactly who she is, I think that Littlefinger might have actually set her up for a particular type of abuse by not just some of the other lords, but by Harold Harding in particular, because that's the one that he's kind of pushing her to try to entice. And the thing about it is, a lot of people think that that Robert Arryn, or Robin as they call him in the show, that he's out of here, he's going to die. But personally, I think that given the way that events have played out in the story thus far, I think anybody who thinks that Robin Arryn is going to die has totally missed, has totally missed the point of how things are going to go here.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, my thoughts on how Littlefinger is going to meet his end, I think, and people were saying in the chat room that he has a plan for Daenerys. And yeah, it's possible that he has not planned for Daenerys at all. But somehow I doubt it, because he is aware of her and he's aware of the fact that she has dragons. So I think that there might be some plan that he has in place for her that that just hasn't been revealed yet. Now, the one thing I do think he has not planned for, because I don't think that he believes in, like most people in the Seven Kingdoms, is others. And I think that, he's going to consolidate a lot more power in the next couple of books and in the next season or two. And I think what's going to wind up happening is when the White Walkers basically are able to march south through the wall and things go into total chaos, he's going to run to the one place that he knows that, or at least that he thinks, is going to be the most cover for him, and that's when it's going to all come tumbling down for him. I think that at some point, someone is going to alert Sansa to the fact that Peter Baelish betrayed her father in the throne room, which is something I don't think that she is actually aware of at this point. I think that's going to be the kind of final nail in the coffin for her, and that actually gets her to say, you know what, okay, I'm going to kill this dude. And again, I agree with you that it's not going to be her specifically. I think that she is going to tell Robert Arryn, hey, look, remember how your mom supposedly died? Well, that's not what happened. Your uncle Peter Baelish actually pushed her out the moon door. And at some point after he gets back to the Vale, he's going to be thinking everything is okay, everything is fine, and he's going to get arrested, and Sweet Robin is going to make the bad man fly out the moon door. I think that's how it will end.
Oh no, that's a great theory. I really like that. I haven't thought of that before. Yeah, that does. I like it. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So, any more thoughts on Peter Baelish from you, or pretty much that's where you're at with it.
Yeah, I think that, I think all that sounds good. I think we're pretty much on the same mind that he's gonna fuck some shit up, but eventually meet his downfall. And I think that's interesting what you said about Robin Arryn, like playing like he's not gonna die, he's gonna stick around and play a part at the end. I hadn't thought of that either, and I think that's definitely a possibility. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think and then like I did a predictions video for season 5 a while ago, and some people were saying that I was crazy for it, but look, I think that the fact that they showed him dropping Robin Arryn off with the Royces, as opposed to what people were thinking was going to happen, which is, oh yeah, he's going to take him out, to tour the Vale and then he's going to have an accident and die or something like that. Like, nah, I think that the show has definitely given us a glimpse to the fact that Robin Arryn, for one, when we do actually see him again, he is not going to be the sickly, wimpy kid that he was. And that, when he comes back, even though he may not be a great warrior, he'll be competent enough in some sort of military arts, and he'll be able to handle himself. I think he'll have some skill with a sword or a lance or whatever his preferred weapon may be. But I think ultimately, the thing that's kind of gonna send him back into the kind of childlike state that he was in when we first met him in the books and in the show is him hearing about Peter Baelish killing his mom. And I think that's going to be the thing that kind of regresses him a little bit. And so when he finally gets the opportunity to confront him, I think it's just going to be the thing of, all right, you know what, guards arrest him. Hey, open the moon door, throw him out.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Yeah, and I like the idea of Robin being used as Sansa's pawn to get back at Littlefinger. I think that's pretty cool. But the one question I had for you is, who do you think, how do you think Sansa will find out that Littlefinger is the one who is responsible for betraying her father in his downfall? I mean, who really knows that would be in a position to tell her? Maybe Varys? Is that what you're thinking?
I was thinking it would be either Varys or someone else who, for some reason, had to go to the Vale. It's either Varys sends, a letter, or he goes to the Vale himself at some point, or it's somebody else who was there that we haven't even thought of that's going to wind up being in the Vale. And like, oh yeah, I was there when that happened, and or maybe that was in the not the King's Guard, but City Watch or something. Like somebody is going to tell her. I don't think it's just going to be a thing where she winds up touching a weirwood tree or something like that and finds out, because
Yeah,
the weirwood trees, in the capital. So yeah, I think it's going to be something like that. And I also, look, if I'm not mistaken, in the books, I think we find out a little bit later that it was actually Peter Baelish that got Joffrey to behead Ned instead of sending him to the wall in the first place, which is something that didn't come up in the show. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe I might have heard that somewhere, but I do think...
I think that's a theory, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, but at the end of the day, I just think that someone who was absolutely there that she knows was in that throne room is going to tell her. Who it is, I'm not exactly sure, but someone is going to tell her, and that's how she's going to find out. I don't think it's going to be letter or some just some random sign. I think someone is going to physically sit down and have a conversation with her and tell her, like, look, your father was a good man who tried to do the honorable thing. He thought that Peter Baelish could be trusted because your mom said so, and ultimately he was betrayed to his death by Littlefinger. Well, that's what I'm thinking when it comes to him.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And moving right along, we're going to take it to Essos, and we're going to talk about Arya and the Faceless Men. And, as we all know right now, Arya is currently in Essos training to be a Faceless Man assassin. And, currently in the show, she's blind. in the books. I think by the time we get to Winds of Winter, they got the a couple of excerpt chapters. I don't know if you read any of them at all.
Oh yeah, I read that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, yes, we know that she is no longer blind, and she's been kind of sent off to do a couple of dangerous missions. And you know, I'm thinking that based on what the Ghost of High Heart told her when she ran into her with the Brotherhood without banners, it is apparent that she at some point is going to come back to Westeros. You have her wolf dreams with Nymeria, her walking into the cat, which helps her to navigate when she was blind, and you know it just seems that at some point she she is no longer going to be Arya. And it's funny because I was watching the video, and I think it was Tony Teflon's video a couple of days ago, where I think he was talking about the Ghost of High Heart, and there was something that the Ghost of High Heart called Arya, and I forgot what it was, but I think that that's going to wind up being her name later on. I think whatever. Oh man, I wish I could remember what it was. If anybody in the chat room happens to know what Most High Heart called her, please put it in there. I will be eternally grateful to you for that. But like yeah, before I go any further, Mark, what are your thoughts? Where do you see things going for Arya?
Well, first of all, I've read something on the Watchers on the Wall about a potential season 6 spoiler. So if you don't want to hear this, you might want to skip over this because this might be a major sort of thing. But apparently, there's been a lot of indications that Arya will be in the Riverlands in season 6, and so I'm sort of thinking that she's going to kill Walder Frey. That's my thought behind it. I don't know if she's going to the Riverlands on a mission as a faceless man or if she's going back there sort of on her own volition. But I think ultimately, like, she's gonna like you said in the book, she's already sort of regained favor with the faceless man and has been sent off on the mission. And I think the same thing will happen in the show, and she'll end up graduating to being like a full-blown assassin. But and she'll be sent on missions, maybe on the mission to Westeros, but at some point she's just going to revert to being Arya. And I think this has been heavily foreshadowed in the books with her wolf dreams and whatnot. So I think she'll gain all the skills of being like this skilled assassin, but then will just go off and kill people on her own volition. Like, and in my how Game of Thrones will end video, I theorized that maybe Arya would actually end up being the Valonqar and end up killing Cersei. I'm not so sure about that. I kind of take that one back. I think it's more likely Jaime's going to be the Valonqar, but I do think Arya is going to like kill a lot of like people and get her revenge on a lot of people before she goes out. But yeah, that was sort of my thinking behind it.
Okay, now my question to you is, do you think that it's possible that she could come into conflict with the Faceless Men? Like, like she decides to break away from them, and then maybe they put a contract out on her for kind of breaking breaking away from their order.
I think that's definitely possible, and I think that would go more in keeping of what we know with the Faceless Men. But something tells me that they're just gonna let it go, or at least maybe that's just wishful thinking because that's what I would like to see. But I think that they would sort of just be like, Okay, she doesn't want to do this anymore. She's not ready to be a Faceless Man. She can go off and do her own thing. We don't really care what she does. As long as at this point she's not actually using the faces anymore, because once she leaves the Faceless Men, she won't have access to that. So as long as she's not using any of their stuff, they'll be okay with her doing whatever the hell she wants to do.
All right. Well, even with her not having access to the House of Black and White anymore, though, do you think it's possible that she still uses uh, those powers even after she's left?
That is a good question. I suppose it's possible, but I think in that case, it would be more likely that the Faceless Men wouldn't be okay with her doing her own thing, like if she's using their powers. So I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, and the name was given to me by Renwood, and she was called Darkheart. And yeah, she brought up the fact that her being the daughter of Lady Stoneheart, it does absolutely make sense. So it could be that later on, when she breaks away from the Faceless Men, that she could be, just I guess the dark-hearted assassin, and kind of be a killer for hire throughout Westeros, possibly. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, I don't see her dying by the end of the story. I do think that she does live to be, that she does live beyond the confines of this actual story. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see, when she comes back to Westeros, who she's going to be, how that is going to shape the rest of her existence throughout the story, and will she ever go by the name Arya again? That's the one thing that I'm wondering. I think that after she has fully embraced her role as this kind of as this killer for hire, I think she's going to leave the name Arya Stark behind, because she's went through being so many different people. I think that there's no way that she can get back to the girl that she was before she left Winterfell to go to King's Landing, and all of the things that have happened to her since.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's pretty much exactly what I think is going to happen, or pretty similar. Is that she's not going to be Arya anymore. I think, as you said, the Darkheart. I hadn't considered that, but that's a good possibility, and I think that's going to be more of a book thing. But I think that she's basically just going to become this badass assassin and just disappear into like legend or whatever, and she's never going to go back to being Arya. Like, it's funny because I said this sort of something similar to this in my How Will End predictions video I did like a year ago, and that is the one thing I've gotten the most arguments, the most people disagreeing with me on. And it's funny because it's the one thing I feel most strongly about. I think because I've heard other people say some theories that she's going to see the error of her ways, or she's going to sacrifice herself to save Jon Snow, or some of these other things where she realizes the good in the world. And I really don't think that's going to happen. I think she's just going to get more dark and dark, because when you're like that young and see all these traumatic events, and she's seen like a shitload, a ridiculous amount of traumatic events, that affects someone for life. So I don't think she's ever going to recover for that. I think she's going to just end up being this really dark and twisted person. But I do think that she is going to kill, even though she's not going to retain the name Arya, she's going to kill for Arya's purposes. Like, she is going to go off and kill Arya's or the Starks' enemies, and she's going to sort of help the Starks in that way. And I'd really love and I think she's going to regain her walking abilities and regain her connection with Nymeria. And I'd really love for the show to do this as well next season, because they've done nothing to set this up. So I hope that they start to set this up next season. But I think it's definitely going to happen in the books, because the books have already been setting this up.
yeah, that was definitely one thing that I've heard a lot of people say is that the show should have already set up the fact that all the Starks have wargame abilities, and I do hope they get into that next year. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're at least going to do Arya and Jon. They might not do Rickon because Rickon seems to be, to a certain extent, such a minor character that I don't think we're going to get any of his points of view, even in the show. But I think with regards to the show, I do think that we are going to get Arya, at least wargame into the cat to help her see while she's in the House of Black and White. But also, I do hope they bring back Nymeria because, yeah, I mean, like Nymeria should have at least been mentioned by now, and she hasn't. Um, yeah, so I really hope that they do that with her. But oh, I have another question for you. Do you
Yeah.
think do you think it's possible that she'll meet up with any of her siblings again?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think if I would have to guess, I would say she might like meet up in the sense like she's in the same room with them, but they're not really aware that she's there. That she might just be looking at them from afar. But I don't think she'll actually like have a conversation with one of them again. I think she'll eventually get to such a dark place where she's not like you said, not really Arya anymore, so she won't be able to relate with them in that way. So I would have to go with no, be my guess.
Yeah, I mean for all intents and purposes, at this particular point in time, Stark seem to be the most disjointed family in any fiction I've ever seen. And unfortunately, I don't think any of the Starks are ever going to have any further face to face meetings. Even if you get Rickon going back to Winterfell and Sansa, ruling either from Erie or from King's Landing or wherever she might be, I don't think that any of the Starks are ever going to meet again. It's the
All
and it's the
right.
craziest thing because yeah, these are are heroes of the story for the most part. These are the people that most people have connected with. So it's just one of those things where it's like, man, talk about bittersweet. It's like I don't think any more of the Starks are going to die, but I don't think that they're ever going to have, that kind of happy family reunion at all. So, yeah.
I don't know. I actually think because this is actually going to be one of my season 6 predictions is that we're actually might get I'm actually thinking they might do a semi Stark reunion because I think that definitely Khan and Sansa are going to meet up again because I think they'll both have a part to play in the end game. But I was also thinking maybe even Jon Snow as well, like the three of them might meet up again next season. It's just a theory I had. But I think with Bran and Arya, I think that they're never going to meet the Starks again. They're just going to be separate the whole time. So it will never be like a full reunion.
Interesting. I mean, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on that particular one because I think that's the one thing that everybody wants to happen, and I think George will purposely keep that from us just because he knows. Like, oh yeah, I know you want these Starks to meet up and have a nice, happy, joyous ending, and everyone lived happily ever after. But so yeah, I just I don't think that they're ever gonna meet up again, and it kind of hurts me. It hurts my heart.
I mean, it's possible, but I tend to think that I mean, George is dark, but he isn't always that dark. He doesn't always like to go the absolute darkest way. But here's another possibility: is that maybe this reunion happens in the show, but not in the books. In the books, they never meet again. That's always a possibility as well.
Oh man. All right. So, man. Well, last but not least, our last topic for tonight is going to be the Maesters of Westeros. Man. So the Maesters, as we have seen, are kind of, almost a shadow organization to a certain extent. And I say that because while we know that they are the keepers of records and knowledge throughout the Seven Kingdoms, we don't know much about how they actually work. We know that, people that not people, but men are sent to Old Town. They swear off all their former allegiances. They literally give up their last name. They go to the Citadel. They study different forms of chemistry, biology, alchemy, the different sciences of the world. And some even study magic, even though most of the Maesters aren't really cool with the whole magic thing. And, with Sam going to the Citadel to become a Maester, and it's kind of crazy because, you would think that it seems kind of like, becoming a Maester would take years, right? So unless Sam is going there only specifically to learn how to beat the others, it seems kind of almost like a wasted trip there because, they already know that the others are coming. It's not a question, it's not a rumor, it's not the thing of, okay, well, yeah, the last anybody seen them was over by Fenn's territory, and it wasn't too many of them, so we don't have anything to worry about. In the books, they've heard about Hardhome. In the show, you have John, who was there. You have Dolorous Ed, who was there. You have the Wildlings, who actually made it back from Hardhome, who were there. There are people from the Night's Watch and people who are at the wall or just below the wall who know, like, look, there is this massive army coming, and we need to do something about them right now. And so for Sam to be, off to Old Town to become a Maester, I'm like, they don't give a specific length of time of how long it takes to become a Maester. But based on the Dunk and Egg novels and also the World of Ice and Fire, we know that Aemon went to Old Town, to the Citadel, when he was, I think, either 10 or 11, and he went to the wall when he was about 20. So if the average time it takes to become a Maester is somewhere between like 9 and 11 years, yeah, Sam is kind of wasting his trip, unless he's going there specifically for the knowledge on how to fight this war. So yeah, it's kind of crazy because with the Maesters, there are conspiracy theories that they're the ones who are trying to get rid of magic, or at least they are a faction that is trying to get rid of magic, but also that they were directly responsible for bringing the downfall of the dragons. Now, is there anything that you would like to expound upon, or any thoughts that you have on the Maesters?
Yeah, yeah. The first thing, like, I think the theory that they're consciously trying to get rid of all magic is a good theory, but it's not one I think is most likely. I'm most likely. I think that the Maesters are kind of like they're the climate deniers, climate change deniers of Westeros, but with magic. They're the magic deniers. They, even though they have all the evidence that magic exists, and especially dragons, they're more of, I know that one of their chains is Valyrian steel, but that's kind of put down. Like most people who do that, that's kind of seen like as a novelty. I think the overall organization is trying to be like, not worrying about magic or whatever. And I think Samwell is definitely going to come in and stir things up, because it was funny you were talking about how the White Walkers are coming and people know, but the thing is that nobody at the moment, nobody sort of south of Moat Cailin knows or thinks that the White Walkers exist or it's a threat. So the big thing Sam might be instrumental in is sort of making people aware of that it's a threat, and also learning more about them, because even like in the extended lore of the Song of Ice and Fire with like the Worlds of Ice and Fire and stuff like that, we still don't know much about the White Walkers or the others, however you call them. And I think a lot of that is because Martin is purposely holding this information back, because it's going to play a major role in the end of the series. So I think Sam is probably going to learn a lot of this stuff that the Maesters have been keeping to themselves, because they're sort of denying that the White Walkers even exist, and so they just don't want this information out.
Yeah, I mean that is very possible and likely. Yeah, because as we've seen in the books thus far, a lot of it, when we hear tales from people, you have like the tales from Old Nan, right? And she's been pretty accurate with a lot of the stuff that she's talked about. But then when you hear the Maesters talk about this stuff, it's very dismissive. It's like, all right, well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, they say this happened, but that superstition. Come on, why would you believe in something like that, right? And to a certain extent, Qyburn is kind of almost the bridge in between science and magic, but to a certain extent, he's the guy who's also trying to push science into new realms that that the Maesters seem to be afraid of. And while you have this group of people who again hold pretty much all of the knowledge of most of this place, most of the Seven Kingdoms and what's been collected from around the world, it's a thing where I think it's dangerous in any particular society for a small group of people to have, the vast amount of knowledge hoarded to themselves, because, being that they have their own beliefs and that there's certain stuff that they would rather dismiss, when there is something new brought to the table that isn't part of their everyday lexicon, it kind of is like, oh, come on, man, how in the world could you possibly believe that? Oh, come on, man, that's all superstition. There's no fact behind it. It's all hearsay, and ultimately, that's one of the things that, when you look at history, has kind of also been a downfall of societies. When you have, just a small collective of people that have hoarded all the knowledge, if that group of people gets wiped out, or if that particular location where they store all the knowledge gets wiped out, you practically, that society almost gets thrown back to the Stone Age to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what happened to Europe, after the fall of Rome. Now, the Dark Ages wasn't as crazy as people think it is, but just think about how many advancements you might have had if the records that the Romans kept might have been more widely dispersed amongst the rest of the empire, or like the library at Alexandria. You have what was supposed to be the greatest repository of knowledge of the known world at that time, and because you had a small group of people who controlled all of it, when that thing got burned down, there's stuff that lost to history that some of the stuff we may not even be able to imagine. And just with the whole thing of the Maesters and their control of knowledge, it's, my big question with that is, seeing as how it's them really talking to each other and kind of talking through and around everybody else in Westeros, what is it that they might be communicating to each other that could either help to elevate the society or possibly bring it to its knees?
Huh. I don't know. That's interesting. I'm not quite sure what the answer to that might be, but I like what you were saying about the analogy. I think you're definitely right that that's kind of the analogy George is going for, with the Maesters being the ones who are withholding knowledge to the detriment of the population. And I think that's going to be, as we were talking about the end game before, about how it's going to be end up like at the end of the series, it's going to be more favoring the little people. I think it's going to be, you'll see a release of all this knowledge, and maybe even the end to the Maesters, who have perhaps been just withholding this knowledge from the people the whole time. So I think that will be part of the end game. And also, I think it's a strong possibility, and I've heard some theories out about this, that the Maesters are kind of like Peter Baelish in a way, that they've been trying to manipulate political events going on in Westeros. And I think they'll, and my theoretical like downfall where King's Landing's destroyed, I think they'll have a part to play in this as well, because they've just been trying to manipulate shit as well. And it's also funny about the thing you're saying about them denying knowledge, because I was just watching this video I did like over a year ago where I did like a mashup of Maester Luwin talking about all the things that don't exist, like dragons and giants and children of the forest, and then I like edited in pictures of the actual dragons and children of the forest and stuff. So I think, yeah, they're purposely trying to sort of manipulate knowledge.
All right, now, do you think that it's possible, that they do have some sort of other secret that they could be hiding, just based off the fact that they have allegiances? Because remember, they don't have allegiances to the families of these particular castles. They have allegiances to the actual castles themselves. And you know what? If I ever meet George, I would have to ask him, like, what was the basis behind just the Maesters and their allegiance to the particular castles and holdfast, as opposed to like the actual family. Because even though that's what it's supposed to be, we have seen that Maester Ruin, well, not Maester Ruin, but that Grand Maester Pycelle was loyal to the Lannisters, and also Stannis' Maester. Oh man, and I just got finished doing a chapter reread a couple of weeks ago. And
I can't remember who that guy's name is either.
But he supposedly went with Stannis from Storm's End to Dragonstone, and so I'm wondering, like, how was it that he was able to get that transfer to go there with Stannis and all that? So obviously he had more allegiance to the actual family versus the castle itself. my friend Donna Krakenwit, who is actually in the chat room, he's about to leave. He's getting off work right now, so I just want to wish him a safe trip home, and hopefully he gets to watch the rest of this when he gets home. And also, I'd like to thank everybody who's here in the chat room right now. We have currently 19 viewers, so thank all you guys for sticking around for this long. But yes, your thoughts on the Maesters and what their allegiance is to the actual castles could be, and how that could possibly affect the end of the story.
Yeah, I think that's probably like where a lot of these theories come from, that they're kind of trying to manipulate the political situation, kind of like Peter Baelish, is because they each have a maester with all the castles, so they're able to, like, if you will, like, try to influence what these major lords do in order to have the outcome. In fact, I was watching one of Preston's videos the other day when he was talking about the possibility that Stannis' Maester was trying to form an alliance between the Baratheons and Starks, and that's why he was like so hardly against Melisandre, and why she ended up having to kill him, because he was definitely trying to push him in a certain political direction. And I think that's possibly true of all the Maesters. Is like, it's kind of like, it's equivalent to like the Red Priests, because they sent out these Red Priests next to people of power to try to influence them. Like, they sent out Thoros of Myr to try to get close to King Robert, but he failed. But they sent out Melisandre to get to Stannis, and she succeeded. And I think the Maesters are doing a similar thing. They're using their positions in order to try to influence things to get a political outcome that they want.
Yeah, I mean that definitely seems true, and like I said, I think with the conspiracies. Oh, and it was Maester Crescent. I don't know how.
Okay, right.
Yeah, yeah. So shout out to Renwood and Tumco 26 for that one. Thank you guys. Yeah, it's just it's kind of crazy to think that you have this group of people who is manipulating the people who are supposed to be the manipulators. The high lords are supposed to be the people who are controlling all of this, and yet you have this smaller group of people who have taken it upon themselves to put their own will upon them, and possibly have shaped Westeros for a much longer time than people have realized. And I just think that with Samwell going to Old Town to study under the Maesters, that we're going to get a grand insight to how they work. And, I think that he's going to uncover some very, very interesting things. So, damn it, George. Damn it, George. Damn it, George. Can you please hurry the fuck up with this, because I don't believe what's going on with the Maesters. Oh man.
I still don't know where they're going with the Maesters in the books, or what the specific direction they're going with. And the show is even more of a question mark, because I don't even know if they're going to introduce someone like Maester. Was it Marwyn is his name?
Yeah.
So but the show is definitely taking Sam to Old Town, but I don't know what he's going to do there, if they're going to do the same thing as they did in the books or whatnot. So it's all a big mystery to me.
I mean, and it's funny, speaking on Maesters, we're supposed to at some point get this book called Fire and Blood, which is supposed to be written by Archmaester Gildane, which goes like the whole Targaryen history up until Summerhall, because I'm not sure if he died at Summerhall. Or, no, I don't think he died at Summerhall, because I think like some of his writings were found. But yeah, man, again, damn it, George. You know, because we can't even actually get that book until after the Dunk and Egg story, because if you put out that book first, then it winds up spoiling a lot of stuff from the Tales of Dunk and Egg. So damn it, finish Winds of Winter, finish A Dream of Spring, finish Dunk and Egg, finish Fire and Blood. Okay, damn you, George. We don't have a left.
I think we'll just have to be patient. It'll probably be like a decade before we get to that. Because
Oh,
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know he did say he wouldn't do the Blood and Fire. He probably won't do it until after Song of Ice and Fire is finished. So.
yeah, man. So please, for the love of the seven old gods, the drowned god, whatever other god you put into the story that you said don't exist, just please, good Lord, man, can we get these damn books already? You got Julio and Linda, okay? Put them to work. The World of Ice and Fire was pretty good. Put them to work. Get them to finish Fire and Blood.
Right.
Oh yeah, but look. Any final thoughts from you, sir?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
All right. Well, listen, I would like to thank Mark from Enchantment of Eternity for coming by. This is part 2 of our discussion of how Game of Thrones will end, and we have covered some very interesting topics today. You guys, if you haven't seen part 1, make sure to go to his channel and check it out. I have left the link in the description for his channel. And yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll get through a couple more of these in the future. But I have had a ton of fun doing this. Thank you to everybody in the chat room who has shown up and who has given you feedback and who's kept the hype going, because as we say in the Hype Swatch, what is hype and never die comes back again hyper. And yeah, just listen, just remember, check out Mark from Enchantment of Eternity. If you are into sci-fi and fantasy, this man has phenomenal reviews, and I'm glad that he contacted me about doing this series. And like I said, I hope we get to do more of these again in the future. So,
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun. I really liked the chance, because for the past couple months, I haven't been doing that many Game of Thrones videos, and I won't start again for like another month. So it was great to have this as a sort of refresher of Game of Thrones, and getting back into it is really good. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me have this chat. It was a lot of fun, and I just want to give a quick plug to my channel. If anyone's into Star Trek, I'm doing Star Trek Week on my channel this week, where I'm making like 5 episode reviews of Star Trek, so that's going to be my thing this week. But in October, I'm going to start up again with my Game of Thrones Season 6 predictions, so that's another sort of plug there as well.
Cool, very cool. Listen, I would like to thank everyone who has watched this live, and everyone who will be watching this again in the future. Listen, man, you guys already know the deal when it comes to me. Rate, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, come back for more. That's been my time. This is Mark and Don Willie, and we are